Today on my show, I have Alana, and I'm going to say your last name.
Okay, Zeitchik.
Zeitchik.
Yeah.
It's actually not that difficult.
It's not.
Zeitchik.
It's just a Z. It's everyone's like, ah.
Yeah, right. Currently, you have 6 family members who are being held hostage in Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
Before you get into everything, how are you coping? How are you dealing with this? How are you?
Yeah. It depends on the moment you ask me. You know, I cry every morning when I open my eyes.
Yeah.
Because there's a realization that dawns on me every time I open my eyes. Of course, I open my phone because I'm a millennial and it's the first thing I do. And then I see so much content, if you will.
Right.
And it can overwhelm me. But I think I'm coping by sitting here and talking to you.
Right.
By going on the news, by trying to share my family's story, because I was just talking to my cousin about this in Israel, the brother of my missing cousins, and he doesn't have the strength to be out there protesting. Neither do I. I don't have the strength to be out there at rallies or maybe even putting up posters. He's like, so I have to interview, I have to speak and advocate, and that's how I feel. By advocating for my family and for the Israeli people,
yes,
is the best way for me to cope. You know?
Yeah. So there's 3 adults and 3 children. Do you want to just get into who they are?
I think it's important to give context about me and my relationship to my family, because I don't think everyone has this type of tight-knit relationship with their cousins. Some people do.
Some people, right, but not everybody.
Especially when they live thousands of miles away from you.
Yeah. But
my mom is one of 5, and her and her siblings are very, very close. And her oldest sister, Ricky, is my aunt, and it's her. So she has 3 kids, Danielle, Moran, and Sharon. And those are my 3 first cousins. And I grew up with them. I went to Israel every summer of my life. I went to camp there.
Oh, wow.
I spent summers where I would live in their house. My bat mitzvah was in their home in Israel. Their sisters, he's like a brother to me. Danielle was like an older sister to me. She even came and lived here in our house after she got out of the army, because all Israelis have to go to the army. She lived in our house and was a nanny here when she was in her 20s. And she's just the most nurturing. She's the oldest of all of our cousins. She's the most nurturing, motherly sort of. She's just she's a big hug, you know? And she had her daughter by herself. She made that choice at the age of 39. Something
wow.
that I always want to hold her up for. It was so courageous to choose to have a child by herself.
Absolutely.
At 39 years old. And I'm coming up on that age. And so she and I always bonded a lot on that struggle of what do I do about this? And Sharon is my younger sister. She's sarcastic and funny and sharp and loves America, always did. She's had the best English in our family. And she always I would say most Israelis will tell you they learned English from watching Friends. She's definitely one of those people. And she is also, and part of that is her English also made it easy to get close with her in many ways, besides all the time spent together. She was just here in August. My brother got married, and her brother came for the wedding.
Oh, wow.
She was just here. And so she's the one. So Sharon lives on the Kibbutz Nir Oz, with her husband, David. And David is my family is so warm that
Can you explain what a kibbutz is? Because a lot of people don't know what it is. And I don't fully know. I feel like it's a cool commune. People
have been saying commune.
Okay.
I feel like that has negative connotations.
It sounds a little culty.
Yeah,
right?
It sounds culty. So kibbutzim came from communist ideologies around, or socialist ideologies, really, around shared resources. And so they're I compare them to co-ops, but farming co-ops.
Okay.
Imagine it more like that. So everyone has a stake and has ownership of the kibbutz and of whatever the product is that's coming out of the kibbutz. It means everyone is equal. There's no hierarchy of people. It helps them offset costs of living. So it's very expensive to live in Israel. It wasn't always the origins of it.
More expensive than New York?
I mean, Tel Aviv is on par.
Wow.
And they don't get paid as much as we do.
It's expensive.
So it's not easy. It's not an easy life. But so it's these are peace-loving communities.
How many people live in a kibbutzim?
On their kibbutz, what I know of is it was 400 people.
Wow.
And now it's down to a known 160 people.
And that's because most of them were murdered or taken.
Correct.
How many people from their kibbutz were taken hostage?
I don't know the exact number. It's so hard because there's so many people.
There's so many people.
It's hard to know. So it's my family.
The video, I mean, this is a video that we saw very early on that day, was mother holding her two. We're like,
she's holding in it. It's very chaotic, the video.
But that's your family. The one that was at the video?
That's the same video. Okay. Some of them are in that video. So we spotted that. So Sharon and David live on the kibbutz. They have twins who are 3 years old, Emma and Yuli. I've been saying Julie because that's how my cousin translates it into English. It's really Yuli. And Emma is definitely a name she got from Friends, by the way. And her sister Danielle, my cousin, was visiting with her daughter Amelia. So they don't live on the kibbutz. They were just visiting for the
They live somewhere else in Israel.
They live in Yavne, which is the town that they grew up in where their parents live.
Okay.
So she lives in the town where her parents live with her daughter, and they go down to visit them every few weeks for Shabbat. This was a holiday weekend, so the girls can play. And like I said, the kibbutz is like, there's playgrounds. Like it's like it's a great community to be a part of. So Danielle was just visiting by chance that weekend. Wow. Sometimes they come up, from the kibbutz to more central Israel, but the kibbutz is only 1 mile from Gaza.
Wow.
It's very, very close. And so they're used to these rockets being sent every month, every couple of months. And so they have these red alerts that tell them and that the rockets are being sent, and they're so close that rockets have actually hit the kibbutz before.
They have a bomb shelter, I'd imagine, right?
They do. So every Israeli house has a bomb shelter, and a bomb shelter is not like some underground thing, right? It's a bedroom.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I thought it was an underground thing.
No. So it is literally a bedroom that is outfitted with the strength to prevent a rocket from being able to, I guess, pass through. So usually one of the children's room is the bomb shelter, or it'll be like the playroom, and it's just got the right door, the right window, or no windows. Okay. And it's just the way the walls are. So but they're not made to withstand terrorists. My cousins didn't lock. A lot of these don't lock. That's not what they were prepared for. They were prepared for rockets and bombs.
Well, nothing like this has really ever happened. No, never happened. So typically people and I don't know all the I stuff going on in Israel, but I've been to Israel though. And when I was there back in 2013, I kind of was understanding when I would ask people about Palestinians and Gaza and West Bank, and everyone seemed to have a different opinion, or everyone had two. One person said, you can ask each one of us, everyone's going to have a different opinion on everything. But politically, things were going more one way, and I would imagine that people that live on a kibbutz are not down with the way that the politics were going, and
it's to your point though, it's all relative to the person and their lived experience. Right. So for example, there's a woman who is American who grew up in America, eventually moved. She's one of the hostages from one of the kibbutz, and she's a peace activist, and she's amazing. But she didn't have a lived experience of growing up in Israel under war, under constant attack, under suicide bombings, and constant fear from extremists. Right. And I will never label every Palestinian as such. But the reality is, and what I feel people are missing, is the lived experience of Israelis and the trauma for generations now that they have experienced at the hands of organizations like Hamas, who have terrorized them. And if people here could put themselves in their shoes, they might think, well, I could see how someone's views might be skewed perhaps by their actual life experience being under attack constantly. That being said, many of the people within the kibbutzim, because of the nature of them as these kind of socialist environments, many of them have these very these ideals that are much more aligned with the liberal ideals that we know of here,
right?
Of peace and wanting to achieve peace and understanding that we need to.
I feel like those are not the liberal ideals here anymore, but yeah,
not when it comes to Israel. It seems.
Right.
When it comes to anyone else, it seems like that is the case. But when it comes to Israel and the Israeli people seem to make a concession.
How did that happen? Like, why? Like, why do people feel so much hate that they are tearing down posters of babies' photos on them? These babies didn't do anything. Like,
right.
Like when I see like Palestinian children like being pulled out of rubble, like my heart hurts just as much. Like I'm like, what the fuck? Like this is like absolutely horrible.
And I tell people, well, like I was talking to you before, it's, I think, an empathy problem. And for some reason, they're not able to connect with the Israeli people and empathize with their plight in the same breath as they are with the Palestinian people. There's obviously a whole media component and propaganda.
Which is interesting, though, because Israeli people are probably more similar to American people than, right? Or have more of a common...
They're actually probably more similar to the Palestinians in some ways. Like... They have the same problem. Hamas.
You mean Israelis have this? Israelis and Palestinians have more
in common than probably we do with the Israelis.
Right.
Then.
Yes.
So
they don't know anything else. A lot of like women, I mean, living under like Hamas for like a woman or for anyone is like fucking hell. Like that's why I don't understand like when people I don't understand. Right. That's who they're oppressed by.
And then at the same time, like as an American Israeli, and many Israelis will tell you, like, they have been protesting in Israel, their own government, for a year now.
That's been going on. Yeah, can you like explain that a little? Just because
it's very hard to explain. Okay, but essentially, like Bibi,
is it like when Trump was president here and everyone was protesting? Kind of.
Yes, he's been in power for far too long. There's too much power from the religious right. It's not representative of the country. The majority of the country of Israel is secular.
That's what I like learned when I was there. Right? Not religious, not religious at all.
Not at all. They don't go to like a lot. They're not going to temple every weekend.
Right. Like there's different there's areas of course, but not
totally. But they are
like they're out partying.
They have a lot of power. They're religious, but they're not the majority. So
got it.
In Israel, they've been protesting, especially the young people, have been protesting against the government, against Bibi, against some of the reforms, these judicial reforms that would essentially take away like power, like take away the same measures that we have with like the like Supreme Court, for example. So people call it a fascist regime.
Got it.
If you will. I would not go so far as to call it fascist.
Right.
There are still checks and balances.
Yeah.
But that being said, Israelis are actively fighting against it right now. And where I get caught up is why people here can't come together to help us bolster up the Israeli people to fight against their government. Right. That will get us further than ignoring their plight, than ignoring their suffering, or having the suffering wars of whose suffering is worse.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And coming from people here who, I would say most of the time, they have never seen, smelled, tasted, heard war. And it's a great privilege that they've never come near it in their lifetimes. But
it's, I mean, it is such a perspective to like see. And okay, so it's, to me, it's like New York, right? We have the largest like Jewish population aside from Israel.
Yeah.
And every Jewish person pretty much knows, most Jewish people have a family member or friend that live in Israel. And then anyone that's in Israel has a friend or family member or friend of that is murdered or missing. So I feel like this impacts like so many of like our, like New York is my city. I'm like a proud like New York. So I'm like, there are so many New Yorkers suffering directly related to this terror attack, you know? And like, the world mourned with like us, like on 9/11, you know, and I just feel like the world's like not mourning with Israel, and it like makes me really sad.
It's really painful. Yeah, and I'm a New Yorker too.
Yeah, what does
right?
it like? What does it feel like to see these like marches and these like I can't even.
I have been doing my best to not pay attention personally because it does affect me when I feel like my community isn't supporting me. I'm trying my best to be grateful and focus on the people and the community that is supporting me. At the same time, it is really painful. It's like I am here and I have a voice that matters because I am American and I'm Israeli and my family is missing, has been taken hostage. And it's indescribable pain. Like, I think I said it on Instagram. It's like people post and then they go back to their lives. And my family is living this every single second of every single day.
Like an actual nightmare that they can't wake up from.
And I just wish people would come together more to elevate my voice, other voices like me, listen to us, and not as like a one-sided thing. Like, I'm not trying to pit anyone against anyone. I'm just trying to get heard and get my family's story heard and get people to rally around, you know, the release of these hostages. Because no matter what anyone thinks, a ceasefire is not going to end the war. And while I don't want to see more innocent civilians in Gaza die, I don't. I think we need to expand our understanding of war and what happens. And like, we've been doing this for long enough and having these arguments, and it's gotten us nowhere. Like, the same arguments have been happening for the last decade, 15 years. And this is where we are now. So, like, you know the definition of insanity, right?
Right, doing the same thing over and over again.
Expecting a different result.
Right.
Well, maybe let's try something new.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. So to go back, and I asked you this like before, I saw on your Instagram, which is, what is the Instagram for your family?
Bring Our Family Home.
Right. Bring Our Family Home. And there was an update saying that the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, told you that your family is alive, which is amazing. I can't, like, you must have just been so fucking relieved to hear that. Yeah. How do we get them back? Like, what is going on? You've been, I mean, I've been watching you. You were at the UN giving a speech. You've been on like every news channel. Like, are you in touch with government officials? Are you in touch with, like, what are they saying? Like,
So it's hard because we've got two governments. So I'm trying to navigate the American government while my family in Israel is in contact with the Israeli government. In Israel, there's something like the number I can't keep up with the numbers. It's like over 200 hostages, but like 150 families or something around there in terms of the amount of people that are impacted by this. So my family there is like, you know, one of many. And I do know that making a little bit of noise helps because it was so chaotic when this all happened. The government wasn't reaching out to the families. Eventually, I think my family had to reach out once we saw our family on a TikTok video being taken hostage. And realized it was them. We had more of a like ability to say something. So my family, I think, raised their hands and went to the government, and now they're in contact with them regularly. But we have no information as to what their conditions are, if they're together. I heard there were rumors that they were separating men from the women. So it's possible David is somewhere by himself. What are they doing with the babies? Like, we have toddlers, 3-year-olds, right? Like what's happening with them? Is Amelia, who's 5, with her mother? Are they together? Are they seeing daylight? What are they eating? Do the babies that are taken hostage have formula? You know, like any mother, I don't know how any mother, and I'm not a mother, and I see you crying because it's fucking horrific. To imagine being a mother asking these questions and not knowing the answer, and then having the world claim that they think that there's intelligence that tells us everything is fine. Make it make sense. You know?
Yeah. Someone, I put up like a picture of the hostages, like it's like all the hostages, and a girl that she was like my friend's son's ex-girlfriend, you know, whatever. She was like, she's this young chick, like New York chick. She was like, stop with the propaganda. And I was just like, you hateful fucking bitch. I mean, I didn't say that. Actually, it just hurt my heart because I'm like, you're so misinformed.
Yes.
You think it's a lie that these people are being held hostage? Do you hate Jewish people so much? Do you hate Israelis so much? Do you really think this government is more evil than other governments around the world to the point where you have to hate the people of the country so much that you think that it justifies a massacre of children and innocent people who are in their homes?
Yeah.
What?
I think people are blinded by some sort of self-righteousness that I can't understand. Like, I'm experiencing it and I still am not. I'm experiencing this and I'm still not out here trying to attack the Palestinian people.
Right.
I'm directly impacted.
And some people are, of course. Some people are.
Yeah. And I condemn those people.
Right.
And it's hard for me to understand. Like, I think people are just looking for something to be passionate about.
Yes.
And when they find like one thing that makes them feel alive, which is there's something like anger.
Yeah.
They just keep pouring themselves into it and it becomes this sort of like blind rage. And I'm like, when you're so broken like this, you no longer have the ability. It almost becomes more clear. Like for me, I feel like I have more clarity than I've ever had about what needs to happen than I've ever had before throughout my lifetime experiencing the fears of my family being hurt.
What is the clarity? Like, what do you think needs to happen?
Well, I mean, in the immediate, right? Like the hostages need to be returned because the war won't end if that happens. Hamas is evil. They simply are. They are oppressing.
I mean, of course, look what they did.
Right.
I mean,
they're oppressing their own people. We need to listen to Gazan people and what they have to say about their experience living under Hamas.
Yeah.
There is an organization called
But can they even speak out? They'll get killed.
They can't. So there's an organization called Peace Comms, and they're partnering right now with Barry Weiss and the Free Press.
Amazing. Wait, do you know that she introduced me to my rabbi that I converted
really?
with? Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So she's
really
doing
amazing. Her
amazing.
podcast.
She's
all right if you're listening.
Oh, we're gonna make that happen.
Okay, because I really would like to because they're partnering to help amplify this series called Whispers from Gaza, and they are people that they are getting in touch with, and they're like, they're making their voices sound all different, and they are creating videos asking them about their experiences living under Hamas, their experiences of what happens to the humanitarian aid that comes into Gaza, and how Hamas takes it from them, gives it to their own people. And this is all, none of this is
the UN
it's coming directly from them,
right?
From the Gazans in this case.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's really incredible. I'm curious to really listen to that. And didn't like the UN like tweeted something and then like deleted it? And you were talking about misinformation and social media, obviously. And so I honestly think social media is like turning people's brains into like mush also. And like the amount of like, I mean, I'm one of the people who keeps posting things too, but like there's so many like hot takes and like these long like, memes, not even memes, but whatever, just like diatribes, whatever, like that go on and on about people's opinions of things. And surrounding this, it's like we're so invested in this like war, but there's other wars going on probably at the same time.
This is going to sound really condescending, but like people are obsessed with the Jews. They're obsessed with us.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I don't understand it entirely.
Yeah.
And that like you didn't see the same level of misinformation and vitriol around Ukraine.
No, I mean, it was totally different. And people were like, yes. Like,
I know. Well, and I've worked in media and advertising for like 15 years. And I worked at media companies like BuzzFeed, Vox Media, and I've seen the business side and that side of the media. And now that I've been making my media rounds, I see the way things are produced. I hear the way people ask me questions, even as someone who is grieving. Are
they not being empathetic or like what?
They are very empathetic,
okay.
But I'm smart enough to know there's always an agenda.
They want you to say, they're trying to.
If they can position a question that might get me to say something, and I'm not saying it's all conscious. I think it's just part of the game of media at this point. And then if you look at the social media platforms, the algorithm is fed by sensationalism. The more likes, the more people are acting from emotion instead of like rational thinking and critical thinking skills, the more visibility it gets. So we are now, we're now in a place where everyone's in an echo chamber. I can even see it from people in my community who were looking at my stories, for example, which I'm private now, but I know who's following me, who were kind of engaging with me and seeing what I was saying before are no longer. And I have to assume that the algorithm has, and this is my assumption. I don't think anyone is like, no one's muting me. I'm like, I am a sad family member. And that's how I'm engaging with people from my own personal account. Yes. And I don't see them seeing anything. I don't see them following my family's account. And these are people who I know
would definitely follow, and they would follow it.
Know me personally and respect me. And, but you know who is following my family's account? My Palestinian friend. We used to work together. Her family lives within Israel. They live in Haifa.
Does Palestinian people live in?
Correct.
Yeah,
they're Arab Israelis. Some of them identify as Palestinians. Some of them identify as Arab Israelis.
Okay.
It's relative. 2 million of them live in Israel. And they will tell you any day that there is racism within Israel. And that's its own separate issue.
Yep.
But she checks in on me. She says she's here for me. I say I'm here for her. She follows my family's account. And maybe she's not sharing it, and I can understand that. That's probably really triggering and painful because she's also experiencing pain. She's more closely tied to her family there and the region than a lot of other people are. And I can respect that.
Yeah.
But if she can follow my family's account and hear my voice and be there for me and want to hold my hand, then I don't know why anyone else couldn't. It doesn't make sense to me.
So everyone listening, go fucking follow that shit right now. Basically, okay?
Yeah.
And all of Alana's shady friends. No, I'm sorry, but that pisses me off, though.
I know. And I need people like you to fight for me because I don't have the fight and I don't have it anymore.
I got you.
I am so appreciative of people that are loud and want to scream about what the Jewish people are experiencing in Israel and here in the US. We just saw a 40-year-old woman get stabbed to death yesterday.
In Michigan.
In Detroit.
In Detroit.
She was a community leader at a synagogue.
Yeah.
And she was a peace activist. She had a program that brings together Muslim and Jewish kids in the community. And she was stabbed to death.
And the little Muslim boy was stabbed to death by this crazy fucking.
Exactly.
It's absolutely horrifying.
So I think we can all agree that these are awful, horrific things that are a product and directly influenced by the same divisiveness that that people are contributing to here about the Middle East and about Palestinians and the Israelis, or Palestine and Israel. I think language matters so much. Words matter. You can use your words as a weapon, or you can use your words to better inform. You can use your words to show sympathy and empathy and humanity. And the media is not going to do that. So as people, maybe we could do that a little bit better than the media can.
Yeah, maybe I should do that better too. No, I don't know. Someone hit me up like, hey, I know you're full of rage right now. And but it's this girl who's she's very intuitive and she's an astrologer also. Yeah. And then I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, I guess I am, and maybe that.
But rage is a valid emotion.
Yeah.
How could we not feel
how the
rage?
Fuck, especially that Saturday and Sunday when it was, and all those images were just constantly the girl Noah being taken and that I just see her face, I just see it, and then the girl with the gray sweatpants and the white shirt and the guy with
the blood
everywhere and dripping down her legs and pulling her hair and throwing her in, and I just kept saying that girl is Kier's age. Yeah. That girl is my daughter's age.
Yeah, yeah. Or the one that really got me was the woman who was German actually, and her body, she was stripped.
Oh, and she's being
paraded around, and her legs were her body.
They were not. Yeah,
they had dislocated her limbs.
Yes,
and spitting on her, and And
why were people quiet? Why were people quiet?
I don't know how.
Why were they quiet then?
No. And also, like, there's a lot of news that continues to come out, and the images of the Israeli people that have been killed in this are so graphic that they're not able to be shown on any sort of media.
Of course. When do we ever? This is the thing. Why in this war do we need proof of things, and then in other things we don't? Like, that's what it's like. It's like, what we need. You want to see pictures of babies burned? I don't. No. I believe it.
Right.
I saw what they were doing to the people who were alive. Like,
well, people seem to feel like they can question the Israeli press, media, government, apparently, and what's coming out of Israel, but then they don't question what is coming from Hamas, because so much of the media that is seen on and is seen about what's happening in Gaza will go from Hamas onto Telegram to like Al Jazeera, which is a biased news organization, and no one can argue with that. And then that makes its way around. And even like the hospital is a great example. The hospital was hit with a rocket in Israel on October 7th. No one said anything.
Interesting.
No one said shit. Like,
a
rocket actually hit the actual hospital.
In Israel.
Yeah, during these attacks. Because
I didn't hear about that one.
The Gazans, Hamas continues to throw rockets into Israel as we speak. But
we don't hear about them
because they're being intercepted. But when that hospital was hit in Israel, no one said anything. Then when the news broke around the hospital in Gaza, people were up in arms so fast. And those headlines are still searchable. I've looked. The headlines are still there. What we know now, accuracy, is that the hospital was not hit. We know it was the Islamic Jihad's misfired rocket. We know
and it didn't hit a hospital.
A parking lot.
It hit a parking lot, right.
And about 50 people or so were injured.
Not 500 dead.
Right now, you can still see headlines that say 500 dead in Israeli airstrike on hospital.
I thought Jews controlled the media.
Same.
You guys are doing a bad job.
So too, but apparently, they are doing a shitty job at a lot of things, and that is one of them. You know? So I just I implore people to do their due diligence more. And I mean this for all of us. I even mean it for my Jewish community. Like, we need to stand up for our people, for the Israeli people, for the Jewish community, and the clear threat against us that is valid and real. And that scares me. But it's also, I think, important for everyone to seek out other information. Like today, a friend told me in a kind of conversation, like on Instagram, I was kind of sort of upset with something that she was saying. And she mentioned something about a school being, bombed in Gaza. And I was like, I didn't hear about that. I'm going to look into that myself anyway, so I can be more informed and do my due diligence.
Right.
If someone that is living this nightmare every day, have the will, because I don't see any other way anymore, to try and just see what's happening or to listen to what the Gazans have to say.
Yes.
Then I think everyone should be able to do the same. And so, let's not be pawns.
Right.
And let's have agency over the information that we intake.
And not just looking for things that will confirm our own beliefs, right?
If you're not seeing your Jewish friends post anymore, ask yourself why and then go look at what they're posting.
Yeah.
Because what they're saying matters. The education that they're trying to put out there matters. So I bet they're not seeing the reports of the volunteers, right? Volunteer aides in Israel who are out there at the morgues, who are trying to uncover, who are getting the bodies. The reports coming out of those people and what they're saying publicly, not the government, the EMTs, the aides.
Yeah.
Are horrific.
Yeah.
Horrific. And no, we don't have imagery, but how can you hear those things? And that's if you're crying out about this, cry out about more things than just the one thing. I also respect people who don't have the ability to express themselves right now.
Yeah.
Just think it's let's have more agency over how we communicate with each other about this war, because it's not gonna get us anywhere if we just keep doing the same shit.
And we just keep fighting with each other, right? Over
Yeah. My message has been always, and no one media trained me. I'm just a person who loves my family and loves the Israeli people and wants to see peace in the region. And I have skin in the game. I have like a real invested interest in this war. And I want to see people come together because I've seen how it's divided our own country. I've seen how the division has created problems in the Israeli government. And we're at a breaking point. And I think I really just want people to rally around. And that doesn't mean that my story is the only important story. It means it's one of them and that it deserves to be elevated, heard, and shared by my community here in New York. You know, for New Yorkers especially, people like look at Israel and like that are really anti-nationalism. They think of it through like American nationalism and what we know as like Trumpers and MAGA nationalists. Israelis, their population is closer to the New York City population.
Right.
The solidarity that Israelis have in their quote unquote nationalism is far closer to the way New Yorkers feel about each other.
Completely.
Than it is about like American
it's so not like that. Yeah, no. And I mean, all my Israeli friends, like no one is like that. I mean, actually my experience with Israeli people, they're fucking fun, loving, hippie-ish, you know, cool, kind of eccentric sometimes. Just
they are. They're very warm. They're very affectionate. Even men, like there's definitely a patriarchal culture there that like I'm always arguing
kind of macho.
With. Yeah.
The
but
Israeli
with each
men are
other,
macho.
they kiss each other on the cheeks. They hug each other.
Yeah.
I was telling you before how they, even when they're arguing with each other, they say phrases like neshama sheli, which means my soul, or chaim sheli, my life. That's how they address each other in arguments.
Yeah, right.
It's like the duality of our existence is so much a part of who they are, and they express that in the ways that they speak, in the ways that they relate to each other.
Right.
And I think it's a humanity that they see in each other, and they see each other's pain. And I think we need to see their pain and recognize their pain and feel into that a little bit more, and understand how closely their pain is connected to the Palestinian people's pain.
Thank you so much for coming on. I'm hoping, I'm praying for the safe return of your family.
Me too.
Everyone who's listening, please go to Bring Our Family Home at Bring Our Family Home.
And help us release the hostages.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.